Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Darren Clark and I'm the host of Neurodiversity Stories, and we have an incredible show for you today. We have Charlie Hart, and I've been an absolute advocate of her work and the incredible work that she's doing. So I am absolutely thrilled that she is going to be joining us today. We'll be talking about lots of different topics, but I will get on to that shortly. The other thing, guys, is we can't do this without you. We are reaching even more countries now. We are reaching Kenya, Turkey, Australia. I think they're watching it on the replay, America, and obviously Great Britain. So please do let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you are tuning in on a replay, then do feel free to watch the show and drop a comment, and we can always get back to you with that as well. So as I said today, we can't do this out with you. So if you are watching this live, then do drop us a message and let us know. And throughout this conversation as well, if you have any questions or anything that you emotes that feeling of reaching out and asking a question or relating to the topics that we're talking about, then please do mention this. I do want to just to add with this as well, a lot of the topics that we may be covering around this will be of sensitive nature, so I just want to make sure that if there are any kind of trigger warnings on this, then please do just be aware of the sensitive nature of the conversations that we're having. So I just wanted to mention that to yourself. We have an incredible guest, Charlie Hart. I want to also say a massive thank you to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we couldn't do this. So I want to speak to you about NATTC, who are our current sponsors, and they are passionate about empowering organizations to reimagine and support neurodiverse or physically disabled staff. And please do check out a little bit about NATTC. So all the information for NATTC will be all in the links, but please do check them out. They do incredible work and help people within the workplace. So now on to our main event and our main guest. So a massive welcome to Charlie Hart. Charlie Hart, Ausome Charlie, as I'm sure the amount of people that follow Charlie on the social media outlets that she puts out, just incredible work. She is a highly experienced CIPD qualified HR professional and a popular and influential intersectional neurodiversity advocate. There is so much I can tell you about Charlie, but I want to bring Charlie on and have her tell you about herself. As mentioned as well, within this subject, there may be topics of sensitive nature, so please do be aware of that. As always, let us know where you're tuned in from, and please, let's welcome Charlie. Good morning, Charlie Hart. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good, thanks, Darren. I noticed you were straight in there with the neurotypical small talk there, but yeah, I'm fine, thanks is the stock answer. Yeah.
So sorry, I know it's a big subject, Charlie. I've been following the incredible work that you've been doing, mainly on LinkedIn, but I know you use different social media channels. If people aren't aware, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Charlie Hart. My pronouns are she and her, or they and them, either. I'm not gender conforming. I'm bisexual. I'm pansexual. I knew all this stuff. And then when I was 42, I found out that I'm also autistic. I'd gone through 15 years of recurring depression and anxiety states and really struggling with a lot of aspects of life, and then realised there was a concrete reason why. I've then gone on to discover that I have C-PTSD, which was treated and came back. And I now know that I'm ADHD as well. So it's been a hell of a journey. And I really appreciate these kinds of conversations now, because I could talk for hours about neurodiversity inclusion in the workplace and employment legislation and HR best practice. But I find now I'm really enthused with getting personal and getting to the deep and meaningful stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for taking time out to speak with us today. What was that feeling of the diagnosis? What was that kind of journey like, Charlie, for you?
So my eldest child, Iggy, was diagnosed autistic first. He picked up on he was picked up as having severe anxiety at school. So because I had private medical insurance at the time through work, I got him in with an adult and an adolescent and child mental health specialist. And she talked to him at length about his anxiety states and how he was feeling, and I was there with him. And a lot of what she said was really ringing true to me as well. But when he described anxiety attacks, as he called them, he talked her through them, what was happening, what brought it on, how he reacted, how he would cower and want the floor to swallow him up and things like this. She listened, and I did as well. And I thought, you know what, that's just what my anxiety states are like.
Yeah.
And the more they talked, the more I realized that he and I were alike. And when it came to summing up at the end of that appointment, she said that, yes, he's anxious, but the underlying cause was undiagnosed autism. So, I don't think autism or any other neurodevelopmental condition makes you inherently anxious or gives you any other inherent mental health condition. But struggling through society, not understanding your neurotype, not being adequately supported, not being understood and accepted and believed, these are the things that can cause it. So he was referred for an autism assessment through school, which is quite a lengthy process. I went to my GP, who sent me away and told me to come back with a list of issues that I have under the headings communication issues, relationship issues. I forget the other, but I'm a researcher as a hobby, and autism by then had become my passionate special interest. So off down the rabbit hole I went. I found actually Autistic Twitter and Facebook, and learned a lot from neurodiversity advocates. So I came up with a list of all of those things, and sensory issues and examples of meltdowns and shutdowns and all sorts. Went to the GP, and he looked at it, and he made me a referral, and he said to me, don't be disappointed if you don't get the diagnosis that you were expecting from this. So there's me thinking, what's going on here? I've asked him specifically for an autism referral. I've already been screened for bipolar disorder. Because I had recurring depression for so many years, every time I had therapy or medication or time off and practiced self-care and self-help, I thought I was okay, but then a few months later it was coming back. So I thought I was bipolar. That had already been ruled out. So I didn't understand what he was getting at. And it's only later when I went to this assessment. Now, I live in Birmingham, and there are no NHS autistic diagnosticians for adults. So basically, my NHS referral went private. So I saw a private psychiatrist who did a really detailed screening. And it's not just questions like you could do at home. They observe your verbal and non-verbal communication at the same time. And in summing up, she said to me, this was a referral for for borderline personality disorder, which your GP believed that you have. I've done an autism assessment as well because you wanted that. And my first impression when you walked in, picking holes in the process and asking me impertinent questions, was this lady has borderline personality disorder. But the more I've listened to you and observed you, the more I realised that you're just autistic. So she gave me a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. So to me, that was extremely validating. I already had reasonable adjustments in place at work for what was previously diagnosed as generalized anxiety disorder. So I talked to my manager and we revised those a little, made them a bit more specific to autism. I'd started to look at the triggers for my depressions and recognise that I was becoming overwhelmed beyond my ability to cope with some things that autistic and otherwise neurodivergent people usually have some kind of scaffolding in place to help with, like conflicting priorities, working on 2 projects at once, being in a lot of meetings where you're constantly having to watch professional behaviours. So I was equipped with knowledge how to make my working life better and how to prop up my mental health, really. So it's incredibly validating for me. And after 42 years of struggling with things that my intellectual peers seem to take for granted, I suddenly realised that there was a mitigation for my struggles and that I wasn't broken. I was wired differently, and that I needed to understand that and accept it and really not beat myself up so much about things that were outside of my control, but start to advocate for my personal needs. So yeah, it was great. I was a very happy, flappy neurodiversity advocate for quite a long time and got into doing presentations at work. I was all over the neurodiversity paradigm and the fact that diverse brains is a good thing for the population, and it doesn't mean some of us are defective. This is something I'd needed for a long time, and I wanted to spread the word. So there was me being a happy, flappy, Pollyanna neurodiversity advocate. Meanwhile, my son, who was still in the system, was struggling more and more. And while I was in the first autism acceptance week following my own diagnosis, when I was doing presentations about how and why to include autistic adults in the workplace and how wonderful it is to be autistic, all the things we're good at, things like that. My son, and did you give a trigger warning? I can't remember.
I have, Charlie. I have mentioned the trigger warning. Thank you so much. So
I was shouting loud and proud about my neurodivergence, while my son was Googling things like how to cope with being autistic and how to quickly and painlessly kill yourself. So at the end of that week, Autism Acceptance Week, my son ended his own life and was found by my daughter, who is also autistic. So my world came crashing down. As I said before, I already had a long history of mental health issues, but they're not always obvious on the surface. And Twiggy, yeah, he had anxiety. He was never off sick from school. He appeared to be doing okay, struggling a bit with bullying and wanting to hide a little bit and not put himself out there too much. Getting flustered about being disorganised and behind with his homework and things, but he was also happy and looking forward to the future. He and I were training, helping him train to do his Duke of Edinburgh expedition, going on long country walks, and he was talking to me quite openly, and no mention of a serious depression or suicidal ideation, and yet we lost him. And from that point onwards, I already had mental health issues, but from that point onwards, it's been a cycle through basically carrying on and being super resilient and very can-do and putting one foot in front of the other, even being optimistic and full of hope. And then something would happen, some trigger would send me crashing down. And my resilience to bounce back has been shocking as well. So So it's been a roller coaster. It's been a source of great comfort and compassion. I've got a bit of an echo. Can you hear that your end as well? Do I need to put a headset on?
There's a little bit of an echo that's appeared, but it's not too bad.
Okay, I'll just step back from the laptop a little.
Charlie, I can't even imagine what you've gone through and what you continue to go through on a daily basis, and just sharing that story and everything, and it's heart-wrenching. You mentioned about organizations. I guess if we say about organizations, we have this thing inside us to make sure that you need, or if say organizations need to do the right thing and they need to spread more awareness and they do this, but it's the sheer importance, isn't it, of making sure that this isn't just a case of a tick box or a nice to do. Even in the educational sector and within the workplace, these things that are trying to change, they're impacting lives.
They are, yes. So I think telling stories in the workplace is super important. And one of the reasons I do what I do is because I felt like Iggy didn't really have positive, visible role models in school for all of the aspects of his makeup in his brain and his other characteristics. And he may have felt a little isolated. So I want people to know, if they're struggling with some of the issues that I've struggled with, like growing up with an autistic and ADHD brother with high support needs and learning disabilities, growing up with a depressed mum, an alcoholic father, getting bullied at school for not being fashionable and for being wearing the wrong clothes and having the wrong mannerisms and voice. Like I was called posh at school. It was quite a rough school, things like that. And going through relationships that are toxic at best, some of them quite abusive, actually, even if that wasn't intentional in formative years. If people are going through things like that and cycling through depression and low self-esteem and struggling to cope with normal life, and then they find out they're autistic and ADHD and things start to make sense, and they're able to provide some scaffolding for their own mental health and bolster their self-esteem. If they can do that because they've heard someone like me talk openly about this, then it's all worthwhile.
Absolutely, and it's incredibly brave of you in that sense of being able to do that, because it could quite easily, you could quite easily not to do this and think, actually, I'm why should I continue this to help people, but it's inherent in you, Charlie, from what the incredible work that I've done and the messages that you continue. It just strengthens the case of how important this is to continue doing that.
I feel really compelled to do it, to be honest. I mean, there are some things that if I'm reached out, say a parent reaches out to me and says, my child is suicidal, I don't know what to do about it, I will self-protect then and put up barriers saying it's pretty insensitive to come to me with this. But supporting other people in my situation, definitely. And it's telling stories, and we can't be what we can't see. So I talk a lot about the double rainbow and being bisexual and autistic. My son was gay and gender questioning and autistic. And I just want people to know that this is really common. It's a really common intersection, that we're not freaks, that there's a lot of us about, and really promote understanding and awareness, because without that, our mental health really does suffer.
How do we get, you mentioned with Iggy, your son, that a lot of it was the kind of the unsaid things and the feelings. You said you went on walks and you talked and everything. and yet there was this kind of personal pain that was kind of happening, this silent pain. I can imagine, Charlie, in the position you're in, and this is where you have to continue to look after your own well-being, because I can imagine a lot of people share their stories with yourselves, and I guess look to you for guidance and help. How do you manage that for yourself? How do you manage your own kind of well-being, and I guess trying to continue these conversations as well to make it more open so people can maybe open to talk. So I guess the question is really, how do you sort of make sure your well-being is kept? If that makes sense.
It would be really easy to talk openly about my struggles and end up spiraling downwards. So it is kind of a bit like a performance. Like I'll get up on a stage or in a live stream like this, say my bit, and then go and wind down. Wind down to me usually looks like a walk in the sunshine, and it's sunny here today. What I don't ever do now, since giving up my permanent job to become self-employed, I never fill my schedule. So if I'm talking and advising about emotive subjects, I always build in downtime. And I'm definitely a people pleaser, and I want people to love me and appreciate me. So it'd be really easy to answer every query that comes in, but I have to tell myself I can't get invested in this person's child, because if something happens to them, it's going to completely stab me in the heart, and I don't need that. So I will signpost them to other people that can support them. And I've done the mental health first aid trainer course really recently with the wonderful Sharon Moffat. I highly recommend it. And they do teach some strategies there for boundaries and signposting. So I do really recommend that.
What kind of, thank you so much for sharing that, Charlie. What kind of strategies do you put in place? For me, I guess, I can only kind of talk from a dyslexia and ADHD side of it, where I get overwhelmed and, things, I have to shut the computer down, and even though there are deadlines that need to be met and certain things, and I go for a walk, you mentioned going for a walk, it's so, it's so emotive and so powerful, to kind of shut down the kind of the social media and all the noise and everything else, to kind of go off and walk. What kind of things do you do? And I know you mentioned the schedule, so is there anything else that kind of...
I have a whole raft of strategies for supporting my own mental health. So one of them is talking things through with my husband, but that isn't going to work if either of us are dysregulated, because we could end up triggering each other, or worse, having a massive row, and it takes me a long time to bounce back. So I have my blog as well. It feeds my website, but some of those blogs are not published, they're private. If I've got intrusive thoughts running around in my head, I will type them into my blog. Going out in the sunshine, walking, running, doing yoga, these things all help. And if it's miserable weather and I don't want to do those things, then quite often I sing. So I do play guitar and sing, but if my brain is fried, then what I most enjoy is finding karaoke tracks on YouTube and just sitting with YouTube karaoke on the TV and belting out the songs.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it. So the risk with these strategies is sometimes they can fall down, and particularly in winter. The pandemic was actually quite easy for me to handle, being at home, lockdown, social distancing, because I was still able to do most of those things, and I wasn't catching the usual seasonal colds that develop into chest infections and sinus infections. Because this is the risk when you rely on outdoors and walking and singing to make yourself feel good. It only takes a chest infection or something like that, and that pulls that rug out from under you. So I've also got painting, and I paint in memory of Iggy as well. So I've got this. This is an Iggy rock. I don't know if you can see it clearly. Yeah. It's a marble rock I picked up in the river, and I painted it with Posca pens. The the rainbow is inside out. So I didn't realise that when I did it. And I was going to repaint it, and my daughter said, but different is okay. So that's when the hashtag different is okay started.
I see.
So I paint these Iggy rocks. They say hashtag Iggy rocks on the back, and I hide them all over the place, places we used to walk together. I hide them at pride marches and all sorts. And the only rule really is that they have to be somehow life affirming or celebrate some aspect of Iggy or something like that, or even just a heart, anything that gives you a boost. But they're life affirming Iggy rocks. Anything that celebrates neurodivergence and LGBT. So rainbow infinity symbols are great. But just a simple heart and a different is okay is good as well.
I think that's wonderful in that sense of you continuing the memory and the legacy and everything that you're doing, and those rocks are just spreading joy in that sense of to someone else, and I think that's the thing we do get caught up in the day-to-day things, and I just want to touch on the math when you said about it was really interesting when you said about the coping strategies, they change. And I never really kind of thought so if I, for instance, if I went to the gym and thought, okay, I want to get fit, and then suddenly I pull an arm or something, and then I'm okay, so I'll go through, recovery for that for ages, and then not do that certain exercise, and then it goes. But I didn't realize so much with the seasons. I guess I never heard the different seasons, which enables, and you're absolutely right. It's darker in the mornings, it gets darker in the evenings. Walking the dog maybe more hassle than just walking in a field. So I never really, I never thought to myself the seasons could change.
Yeah, I actually noticed this first when a manager at work pointed it out. Doing a return to work interview early one year, I'd had yet another sinus infection and chest infection, and she pointed out the pattern. This is where HR systems and metrics can be really useful. She pointed out that coming out of the Christmas holidays that I quite often get physically ill, and then I end up struggling because I'm not doing the things that bring me joy. So she's absolutely right. So I used to be really busy over the Christmas season at work because we used to do an annual pay review and set up everyone's holiday entitlements for the new calendar year and things like that. At the same time as my busy family life, we did have 4 kids between us. The whole family are neurodivergent. And I've got a few hang-ups about Christmas as well, due to my own childhood. And it's not easy when you grow up with an alcoholic father and a depressed mother. And Christmas was just a bit of a nightmare. So every year I would be under intolerable pressure. And then I'd down tools on Christmas Eve and stop. That's when I'd get the adrenaline slump. That's when I would get physically ill. And then because I couldn't do the things that make me feel good, that's when I'd then get mentally ill as well. So every year, I'm hoping to avoid that this year now that I'm self-employed.
It's like you said, it's that cycle we don't realize that we're in while we're in it. We run incredibly busy lives, and like you said, everything is 100 miles an hour, and then suddenly, and it's that period. I hear quite a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to have a week off," and then they come back from the week off. If they're employed, they come up for the week off, and they're poorly. And I guess it is, isn't it? The body, you just start to kind of relax, and the body relaxes, and then suddenly. Those illnesses are picked up.
There's a chink in your armor, and those bugs jump in there.
What do you think we can do to kind of look after our mental health a little bit more? Are there any kind of things that you've seen that kind of help? We mentioned kind of walk in the park. We mentioned, the things that we enjoy. Are there certain things that we can kind of start doing, or what would you think?
Yeah. So one of the problems with being neurodivergent and getting misunderstood, rejected, ostracized, bullied, etc. at a formative age is we can quite often come out of that being people pleasers and fawning and wanting everyone to love us and appreciate us, like I said earlier. And this can put us in a situation where we're saying yes to too many things, beating ourselves up if we think we're letting anybody down. So basically, we can spread ourselves too thin by trying to be all things to all people. Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned to do that has really helped with that is say no. There's things I've done that I've got a lot out of, and I've really felt like I've helped other people, like teaching people to run, for instance. I used to run. I used to be a run leader. I still am, but I do that in a very relaxed, informal manner now with a group of friends, and we spread the burden between us. But I used to lead Couch to 5K programs. And the problem with that is that you're volunteering, and it's totally unpaid. You volunteer to be at the same time, at the same place every week for 9 weeks, able to talk and communicate and run and look after people. And it's a huge commitment. So I was doing that. And every time I'd finish one, the council would say, do you want to do another? And I'd always say yes, because I thought it was needed. But I was doing that when my mental health was really fluctuating. Yeah. I didn't know what mood I was going to be in from one day to the next. And I'd have to be there regardless of my mood, even if I was struggling to even make a sentence. And so one day I said to myself, this is shit I don't need. Yeah. So I don't do that anymore. I've withdrawn myself from the volunteer roster. Same with parkrun. Now, this is going to contradict some people's advice, because others might say, oh, get involved with your local parkrun. It gives you a real sense of community.
Whatever works for you.
So many friends. Yeah. To me, it was yet another over volunteering. So
I see this a lot, and I've done this in the past, and some things I continue to battle with. That thing saying no. It's a very difficult thing, and you are. Where do you think this people pleasing thing comes from? Is it and this way of just wanting to be accepted? It's just, you know, I want to be normal, whatever normal is, you know, in that sense. Where do you think that stems from?
So I think there's a couple of major things at play, but also there are a lot of things at play here. But one of them is a response to getting bullied, and another is rejection sensitivity. Yeah. Many ADHDers and many autistic people as well suffer from rejection sensitive dysphoria. So this isn't just overreacting because somebody says something negative. It's way more than that. Sometimes I get a gut punch of RSD just because somebody forgets to say they enjoyed a meal I cooked or something like that. And I can simmer on that all evening and then explode at bedtime. RSD gives me a volcanic mood. And my first husband, and bear in mind, in my first marriage, I didn't know I was neurodivergent. I didn't know RSD was a thing. And yeah, he didn't like conflict, so we never argued. But he used to say that I was like, living with me was like living with an unexploded firework and never knowing if and when it was going to go off, because I would simmer and then boil over. And a lot of that was my response to rejection or perceived rejection. Some of it is a trauma response, and it's the fawn response to trauma. And yeah, it's wanting to be loved and accepted. And whilst wanting to be loved and accepted, we can become volcanic and melt down and make ourselves really unlovable and unacceptable. So it's such a paradox. And the impact to mental health then is the shame that follows. There's no wave of rejection sensitive dysphoria or severe meltdown for me that isn't followed sometime later by wallowing in self-pity, in shame. And shame is one of the things that really does have a massive impact on our mental health.
it's
I've rambled around in circles there.
no.
The original question.
No, honestly, I feel like I'm just absorbing everything in, and it's so moving listening to this, and I can that this the rejection side of it. I don't think for anyone's listeners that's not aware of this isn't, like you said, it could be something in something as small as someone might think it's really small, like it could just be the way that an email's word, a text is word. It could just be, as you mentioned, not thanking for the tea, a little bit of forgetfulness, but for yourself, that's powerful. And this could last for a long period of time, couldn't it? And it could really kind of, it's almost like you said, you need an outlet for it because you need a conclusion to it. And I understand it's a really difficult thing, and then it layers up, as you mentioned, it layers up to all of those feelings, and then you reflect on something else, and then it becomes, and it's very hard to manage, isn't it?
It can cause relationship breakdowns as well, and then we can end up isolated. I meant to put a caveat right at the beginning of this. I am not a mental health professional. I've done mental health training, but I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm an HR professional by trade.
And
so
Charlie,
what I'm talking about here is mostly things that I've read over the years that have rung true to me and my own experiences. But and let me tell you now, I thought I knew everything when I was younger, and I didn't. It's every time I think I've unwrapped, it's like a past the parcel. There's another layer underneath. Oh, another unwanted gift. Yeah. So I'm never going to reach a destination in this journey to self-discovery, but I'm always going to have loads of baggage with me. But when I was 31, I had my first rock bottom depression. So I've been depressed before then, but not bad enough to need to take time off work. But that year I really hit a low, and I took quite a bit of time off work and started taking SSRIs. And I read this book, Overcoming Anxiety Through CBT. Bear in mind that I didn't know I was autistic. And everything made sense then. I had a notebook. I've still got it now. It goes on about a need for approval. It goes on about a vicious circle of feeling worthless and then feeling better if other people approve of me. So I'm trying to please, I'm doing what others want, and then I'm getting angry if they're not responding in the way I want. I feel treated like a doormat, and then I feel angry, and then I feel worthless. You see, it's a cycle. So these are reflections I made from reading a book about CBT before I knew I was autistic. Then later on that year, I discovered this, Adult Children of Alcoholics. So this lists a bunch of bullet points of traits that you find in adult children of alcoholics. And it's things like being either irresponsible or super responsible, not trusting people. There's all kinds of things there, black and white thinking. It's a book that I read and thought, yes, that makes everything make sense. It's all my dad's fault. I said to my dad, my lovely dad, who had been sober for 20 years at that point, but still described himself as a recovering alcoholic. I said to him, me being me and why am I like this is all your fault. And I think you should pay for therapy. And he's like, Charlie, we've all got our own baggage. What do you think my life's been like? And obviously I now know that I'm autistic and ADHD. He identifies as autistic and ADHD. It's a generational thing, and there are issues that run in the family, and we all respond to the environment we're in and the role models we have, and nothing's ever as simple as blame that person for this. But it does account for some of my people pleasing, I think.
Have you been able to really kind of work on the no, as in, I was just amazed with, and this is when we mentioned about the love of reading and the love of learning and the love of, that was an absolute beautiful example of taking the information from then, relating to it, and then how that book is spoken to you to be able to do this, and then that goes off to learn some more. Do you do that with all the things, Charlie?
I do that with most things, yeah. But now that I'm 47 and not 31, I know that these are just pieces in the puzzle, and that nothing holds all of the answers. And science is, I mean, scientists know this. They'll make a discovery, but it's always the tip of the iceberg. There's always going to be more that we don't know than what we do know. So I try to bear that in mind with quite a lot of humility now.
Absolutely. I just want to share the comment from William. Thank you so much, William, for joining us today. Rejection is especially hurtful for NDs because we routinely make so much effort to fit in. When we later find out that we are not accepted, it makes us feel worthless and a failure. Very, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I totally agree. But I would say that finding out that rejection sensitive dysphoria is a thing, it can really help. So when previously my husband and I would blow up at each other, now we try to examine it for what it is. And that's a strategy that they teach you in CBT, but being able to actually apply that to what it's like, how you can manage some of the automatic thoughts that you get as an ND, by intercepting them and examining them, it can actually help to get past them.
Which I can imagine is really difficult when you're in that moment, because
totally.
that brain fog, that feeling, that really kind of focusing on that is difficult to then start working on strategies to unpack that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what my husband and I do now, if we have an issue like that, we'll talk about it a couple of days later when the air's a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Because you can't regulate a dysregulated person. You can't, especially if you're dysregulated yourself. And we try not to take those moods so personally as well. Yeah. It used to be like if I had a depressive period, he would suffer rejection sensitive dysphoria because he wasn't making me happy, but it was nothing to do with him anyway. But just discovering your neurotype later in life and really having a good long look at it and looking at your reactions as well can make such a difference.
Absolutely. How do you deal with, how do you think we yourself deal with it, or how, as a generation, I guess, because from the digital age now, we're contactable now more than ever. When we had workplaces before, it used to be the email, the telephone, and the occasional text. Now it's a continuous bombardment of we're having to be social, so we have to be on social media, especially if we run our own businesses. We have to have some sort of social presence out there to either promote the business or to answer the queries or the customers. So there's a huge amount of noise, some good noise, and then there's some disruptive noise. How do you kind of manage around all of the noise and the I guess the new age social media kind of abundance that not just social media, but the emails and the continuous contact?
I have notifications turned off on emails, which helps. In terms of social media, I can get really dragged down by that. So I use it as a tool, and it's what's built my brand, and it's why people know me, and it's why I've now got a reputation for being able to talk about this stuff. So work dribbling in, but occasionally I'll get sucked into battles and get too involved. What really helped me, I think, at the time, I was caught in the middle of the sort of conflict between neurodiversity advocates and neurodiversity skeptics going back about 4 or 5 years, mainly on Twitter. And one of the things that really helped me is a social media policy at work that said, basically, you shouldn't be arguing with people on social media if people know you work for us, because it can damage our reputation. So at that point, I thought, do you know what? It would be better if I didn't anyway. It would be better for me. So my social media then, I was getting followed by people at work as well. So the head of recruitment, my HR manager, people like that were following me. And I thought, I'm going to keep my Twitter quite professional. I'm not going to get dragged into any disputes. And at that point, I started to feel better when I had been really, really struggling. And I'm trying to do that with LinkedIn as well now.
I think
I see disputes raging, and it's quite difficult not to get involved.
It is, yeah. It is from a emotive in the sense of because a lot of feelings goes into this, and you think to yourself, why am I being not attacked, but like verbally in the sense of my opinion or these different things, and that can can be a real emotional struggle to have this. The other thing as well is that I feel is trying to find that balance between your work life in the sense of what you have, and then your own kind of private personal life that what you're happy to share, what you're not happy to share. That seems in these days and age gets mixed. And I know from when someone starts an organization, straight away they're Googling or they're looking at, asking to be friends on certain social media channels and following stuff. So the lines are quite blurred. And it's trying to find that balance between having your own kind of private personal life and that public persona. And because you have a public persona in what you do, I can imagine that is that sometimes a bit of a battle for yourself?
It can be, yeah. I mean, because of the kind of work I do and the role modeling and storytelling, I am quite open anyway, although there's certain topics that I wouldn't want to discuss because of people's privacy in my family or friend groups. But in terms of who I am and this person who is like monotonous at time and then overexcited, flat effect face and then grimacing, things like that, I'm very me. It's the persona that you see is my authentic self, and I'm not embellishing it. I'm just not hiding it as much as I might have done previously. But what was I going to say? One of the bigger issues I have is direct messaging. So occasionally, I mean, there are a lot of people that are friends that I've met by DMing, but there's also been people that have been constantly there, constantly on at me and leaning on me for support as well. And that's too much. I'm not the doctor. And so I've had to sometimes sever relationships because those people are asking too much of me. And then I feel crap about it. So it's really difficult. It's a real lose-lose situation.
It really is. And I guess, when you get to a stage, as yourself, the business you run, the people you help and the message you're sharing, it becomes, like you said, you become the kind of the go-to person for what is said, because people want to, for you to solve problems. They want you to help and support. And I guess that was what I was going back to when I mentioned before about how to make sure your wellness is kept up, because, I know for me personally, I'm absolutely inundated with LinkedIn messages and different messages about different things, and some of them are incredible. I love the fact that I get these messages, but sometimes it gets to a point where you feel overwhelmed, and then I set a certain amount of time to reply, and then I realize that the other 30 or whatever it is are not message, and then they message back from another message that I sent, and sometimes it's just overwhelming. But it is that feeling of thinking, what if they think that I'm ignoring them? But I'm not, because it's so overwhelming to try and get back to 30, 40, 50 different messages. And some of these messages aren't just, okay, yes, they're emotive. They I don't know about yourself, Charlie, but whenever I put a message into something, I feel the message. I want to try and talk a lot, within this and really give my time to it.
Yeah, I can spend an hour composing a reply. But yeah, sometimes I take those replies though and I stick them in my WordPress blog and then expand upon them, and then they become something that I publish that lots of people can benefit from, and that then feels really worthwhile. But if it's just a lot of individuals talking about very unique circumstances, then that's really difficult to find the headspace and the time to do. But I don't like to say no to people. Circling back to that old thing again, yeah. It's not just that I'm a people pleaser because I'm trying to prove something to myself. I do genuinely not want those people to struggle unsupported.
Absolutely. Charlie, it's been amazing and emotional speaking with you today. And I can't thank you enough for your time. If people wanted to, I would say, get in contact, and find out more about the incredible work they do, how do they do that, Charlie?
I have a website, www.ausomecharlie.co.uk. So that's awesome with an AU. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I've got my own LinkedIn page and the Ausome Charlie company page. I'm on Facebook as Ausome Charlie, and YouTube as well, and Twitter. I won't call it X because phony stock, yeah, it can kiss my ass. But you can find me on Twitter as @Ausome Charlie. And if you want to know more about the double rainbow intersection of autism and LGBT and my son Iggy's legacy, have a look at the Aim for the Rainbow website and Facebook page as well.
And we will put any links as well, Charlie, into this as well, so people can connect with yourself and obviously know more about Iggy and the incredible work that you do. But I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day and speaking with us today. And we did mention that it would be a topic of sensitive nature, and it's been truly heartwarming to have the conversation with you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and we will speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, guys, that was Charlie Hart. We have had an incredible conversation with Charlie today. As mentioned as well, if there are some of these topics that have been very sensitive, matter for yourself, we will drop some links as well to help and support with this. As always, a massive thank you to our followers that like and continue to support this channel. A massive thank you to our guests that we had past and obviously today with Charlie, and a massive thank you to our sponsors, NATTC. Take care, peeps, and we'll be back next Friday with another Neurodiversity Stories. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.